Hello everybody. I would like to thank the colleagues of the Trakia University in Stara, Zagora, Bulgaria for the invitation to the ICTTE 2020. We were invited with a paper, Teacher Training in Bachelor Studies for Textile and Clothing Technology, a pilot study, which I would like to present to you right now. And with we, there is meant me and a colleague of mine, Katrien Strobel-Teunissen. She's a teacher and works at a fashion school in Stuttgart, Baden-Württemberg, which is a federal state in Germany. We would like to talk about our special project we started about 2 years ago. And this is a pilot study at the University of Reutlingen, where we implemented an elective module in educational science. And the first question is, why did we implement that? Well, this is a typical engineering study about textile and clothing. And it was our attitude, our goal, to implement an educational science model in order to give engineering students an insight into the teaching profession at a vocational school, which is specialized in textile and clothing technology. And the contents is vocational education for textile and clothing technology and a 3-week internship at a vocational school, so that students, engineering students, get an insight into what happens, a kind of work shadowing in a vocational school. So the goals are the observation of lessons and classroom management at a vocational school, teaching experiences that they should gain themselves, and of course this work shadowing at school, in classes, but also during conferences. What makes the vocational school system in Baden-Württemberg interesting, and also in Germany, we have got the so-called dual system for vocational education. This means a combination of school and in-company training. And this is very special even in the world, so that there are a lot of people who come to Germany in order to see how this works. It means a combination of a specific school that also relates to these different educational trainings or vocational trainings, and on this, or at the same time, the people that are involved in an in-company training. And like this, we can say they spend about 30% of their time at a vocational college and 70% of their time in a company, and work there and get educated there. And this combines both experiences, school experience and work experience. And after a certain time of training, this can be up to 3.5 years, this kind of dual system stops, and they have reached a certain qualification. If you have a look at this diagram, you can see that it's a very complicated school system with vocational education that is in parallel to the normal school system. And they also come together in a certain way so that you can get even normal school qualifications at a vocational college in order to later on, for example, attend a University of Applied Sciences. We have their introductory courses right at the beginning, so to say for people who haven't really finished normal school and at a secondary level. And then it builds up with this vocational school plus in-company training that I've mentioned right now. But there are also fully based vocational colleges with a specific professional orientation that work in the same way and lead you up to an upper secondary vocational school, which can also lead into university. And there are different qualifications that are possible to be done during this time. But the dual system itself is a very, very important column in that, and very specific for Germany. You see here the curriculum with individual subjects and fields of learning. And we pointed out the example of an industrial or custom tailor. So you have a combination of general subjects and you have job-related subjects. General subjects are that you also find at other schools, such as religious education, German, social studies, economics, economic competences. And you have also these job-related subjects, which are an important part of that, and they base on, for example, material science, textile technology, craft and industrial techniques, whatever you need in this kind of profession. And then you have compulsory elective subjects such as CAD, computer-aided design, or job-related foreign languages, and so on, and elective subjects that come on top, for example, management and craftsmanship. And all these subjects help to qualify the people. So you can see this is an inside view into a typical class for clothing technology, where we have a student sitting in front of a professional sewing machine, so they get also practical experiences at school, and especially in this school-based qualifications or trainings, vocational trainings. Schools themselves need a large equipment in order to be able to do this kind of vocational education, whereas normally in the dual system the students have the opportunity to get these practical experiences in the companies and then at theory, more or less theory, at school. So what do they learn at school? What is their theory? For example, design and costume history, or design theory, fashion drawing, illustration, fashion design, material science, technology, cutting techniques, mathematics, or IT and CAD. And they also have a certain part of practice and realization, for example, manufacturing or machine engineering, sectional drawing, and fashion projects. And they get their general education, which includes economy, English, German, mathematics, religious education, ethics. And with this implementation of general education, they are able to get on a higher level of education that helps them later on, for example, to get even the admission to go to university. Here, with these two transparencies, I would like to show you what is possible. So you see a wide range of occupations in vocational training, and some of them really relate on this apprenticeship, this combination of school and in-company training, such as alterations tailor, for example, or saddler, shoe finisher, etc., or textile laboratory technicians. And some others are school-based vocational trainings. And this can be both. You can have it both. This means that one vocational education can be either in the dual system or school-based, or it can be both. So it depends a little bit on the facilities, on the companies that are in the federal states. In some federal states, for example, you do not have any clothing industry. And for this reason, people have to do the same vocational training, but just school-based. And in other federal states, you still have clothing industry. And there, custom tailors, for example, can be educated in companies, in smaller companies. So this is a flexible system and enables around, we can say, 2,000 young people who are at the moment in the textile and fashion industry and craft in order to get a vocational training. And as the industry is really seeking for young people, they have started their own marketing campaign. That's the Marketing for Vocational Training in Textile and Fashion, which is of course mainly in German and not in English, but this is one of the very few English websites I can show you. But there is a bigger list of companies listed that have contact partners for young people, and if they're interested, they can contact them directly and talk to them. And there's also listed what kind of vocational trainings they offer in their companies. So there is a better link between the young generation and the textile and fashion industry itself, because at the moment we can see that different industrial branches mainly really compete with each other in order to find enough young people that would like to start an education in their companies. And I would like to show you also that we have different vocational colleges in Germany concerning textile and fashion education. And there is a wide range of them, which means on the one hand we have monostructured fashion schools, for example in Munich, which is the German fashion school, or in Berlin, which is called Oberstufenzentrum Bekleidung, or in Frankfurt, which is called Frankfurter Schule für Bekleidung und Mode. And we have also textile schools that are mainly focused on textile education, for example in Münchberg in Bavaria. Yeah, so we have these bigger monostructured ones and we also have smaller ones. This means they're just departments in bigger vocational colleges where you combine different professions, different occupations, vocational trainings with each other. So normally vocational colleges in Germany are very big and have much more than 1,000 students at the same time. And these students come 1.5 up to 2 days per week, or they come in so-called blocks. This means they come for maybe 2 months and then are just at school, and the rest of the time they work in their companies, because we cannot educate all the textile professions in the same locations where the companies are, because this would be too much. So schools concentrate, and sometimes the students really have to travel. Let alone Baden-Württemberg, we have around 30 textile and fashion schools, which is quite a lot, and they can be either state schools or they can be private schools, because there is a higher number of private schools for fashion, especially in Germany, because their younger generation is still interested in this kind of creative occupation. So let us now talk about the situation of teachers, teacher training for vocational schools. The situation is a little bit difficult in Germany, as we just have one university, the University at Aachen, where you have a bachelor and a consecutive master for vocational education in the field of textile and clothing. And this is just one university in Germany. And they have a small number of students who want to become teachers in the field of textile and fashion. And then we started this pilot study with bachelor students at the applied universities in Reutlingen and Albstadt-Siebenmaringen, both located in Baden-Württemberg. Because from my point of view, we need more people, and I did a study on that in 2012, where this was really obvious that at many schools there is a certain lack of vocational teachers. And for this reason, in several federal states, one has started to have lateral entrance, people with an industrial background, engineers, who are put into school without specific education before, and then they have to qualify pedagogically during their work at school in addition to teaching. And sometimes they realize the occupational conditions to relate. That means that they do not really are the perfect teachers. They might have thought, well, that teaching is much easier than working in the textile and fashion industry. But in the end, they realize that also such an occupation is kind of tough, is stressful. And just to give students a glance of that, what it's to be like to work at a vocational college, we offer this module during these bachelor studies, and also started a master's degree in 2018-19 at the University of Education Freiburg, a Master of Science, Textile and Clothing Technology Economics. And this master shall also lead to occupation at vocational colleges, but takes students with a bachelor degree in textile and clothing engineering. And the second subject at school, because they always need a second subject, is then economics. And this is the way how this module looks like. You have an introductory seminar about textile teaching methodology, about 3 ICTTEs, and then the teaching internship at a vocational college, and then an application seminar that reflects the textile teaching methodology with 3 ICTTEs. So you have altogether these 10 ICTTEs. The method of testing, proving their knowledge is in a continuous assessment, is a so-called portfolio method, which has been applied. So what do they learn in the introductory seminar? For example, they have an insight into a vocational school system. What does it look like in Germany? What is a framework curriculum, and what is an educational plan at a school? What does it look like to explore and observe classroom teaching? They are prepared for the internship, of course, and also in the way that they're able to plan and document lessons, not a complete lesson, but at least further steps in a lesson. And they're also confronted with the portfolio method that they will apply during their internship. And during the internship, as you can see here, they really get into the classes, they can listen to teachers, they also gain some experiences themselves. They are also introduced into classroom management. What does it mean to be a teacher, and what kind of management tasks you also have? They are invited to school conferences so that they can really reflect on a whole range of impressions and experiences concerning the whole school life. And for the application seminar, then they exchange their experiences. They come back to university and they talk about their internships and how they managed a class. and they are more deeply confronted with terms of educational science and didactic and methodological educational approaches in order to reflect what they have experienced. And they shall also refer their experiences to their own career aspirations and their suitability. So they might have thought at the beginning everything is fine and this teaching profession is really cool for me, and at the end they might have said, well, that what I experienced is or has been a little bit different to that what I expected. And this should come out in the reflection of experiences with the portfolio method. So we started, and this is our real pilot study, we started a research process of this pilot study here, this integration of the seminar or of the module, of the elective module about educational sciences with a research on the portfolios. So we could gather 19 portfolios that were written between 2018 to 2020, and they stem from 15 female and 4 male bachelor students of textile and clothing technology at Reutling University or from Albstadt Sigmaringen. And we divided the portfolio into 3 main categories with our questions, and these were please talk about your expectations and preconceptions, about your observations and experiences, and your motivation and reflection. And here you can see in this cartoon that there are, of course, certain preconceptions we all have in mind when we talk about school, as we also have got our own school experiences. So these are not only preconceptions, these are of course also experiences, but these experiences lead to certain preconceptions. And it was very interesting for us then to see, well, what comes out here. And in order to evaluate that, what the students say about their portfolios, we did a content analytical evaluation of the portfolios. And the first step was, of course, to have these main categories, and starting with the main categories to find subcategories, and then a way how to define these categories. So we said, well, the subcategories are, for example, the module internship, the classroom teaching and everyday school life, and motivation and reflection. And each of them were related to the main categories. So for the expectations and preconceptions, we had the question, what were the reasons why this module was chosen? Yeah. And what expectations do you have, and what are your preconcepts? Yeah. And concerning observations and experiences, please tell us something about your classroom teaching observations and experiences, and also talk about your observations and experiences of everyday school life. And then at the end, in the third part, how is your motivation after the internship in relation to the one before the internship? Has the motivation, for example, changed? Yeah. And how is your reflection now on the teaching profession, and your evaluation of experiences for your own professional development? Might this lead you into the teaching profession, or might it lead you into the industry? And I would like to give you a certain selection of examples that we found in all the texts. There was, for example, a curiosity, yeah, on these expectations, the opportunity to get to know unknown occupational opportunities after the bachelor, or the interest in pedagogy and teaching, or even to get supported the idea whether it would be a good decision to go to the master's program at the University of Education. And there were, of course, lots of popular preconcepts. The profession is relaxed, as they said. Teachers have a lot of free time, long school vacations, have a good income as civil servants, which is the case in Germany because they are civil servants. And so, well, of course, the typical concept that they once prepare their lessons and then do not have to do this anymore. And then it's interesting to see what comes out as observations and experiences. And first of all, I can say that they have approached this task in a very reflective manner, and they also argued very appreciatively. Really had certain didactic methodological considerations in mind. And they often talked about positive experiences such as fun or joy. This was a word that was a lot of used. They also gave a lot of positive feedback to the teachers, to the teaching staff, and also said a lot of positive things about the support that they got from their teaching colleagues. On the other hand, they experienced that it took a lot of time to prepare the lessons and follow up the lessons, and they really had underestimated this kind of time. And they also had underestimated the organizational effort and time management, which they sometimes described as challenging. Concerning their examples for motivation and reflection, one can say that the internship was experienced as mainly positive. Their motivation didn't change completely. It changed more into the positive, although they really have perceived the teaching profession is more stressful as they had expected it. Many students therefore report that they have not been aware of the tasks they have to do in addition to classroom teaching, that the whole school management is also a task, or how much time they would spend on personal development, support and education of the students, which is another point that has to be fulfilled by teachers. So, as an assumption and conclusion, they might not have in mind that there is a high responsibility in this kind of profession, but after the internship, they could really say, well, there is a lot of responsibility. And for this reason, their concept concerning the teaching profession changed during this time. Nevertheless, they acknowledged the profession, and it remains something they could fancy for themselves. So, having given you these examples, what we found in the portfolios, I would just cover very quickly this content analytical procedural model by Meiring, which starts with the definition of the material and the analysis of the situation of origin, which was the school, and which kind of material it is. It is a portfolio, a reflective portfolio, and then the direction of the analysis. We started with main categories, as I showed you, and then went down in an inductive way with subcomponents or subcategories. by using the material in front of us. We had our questions in mind. The portfolio was also structured by main categories, but then we had to find the subcategories with the help of the material, and found the material, of course, in the texts and marked the text there, and then we excluded the material from the text into a table and found our subcategories and the different anchor examples that we shortened and in this way coded too. So that we, for example, can say, well, we had a lot of times the words fun and joy that were given concerning the experiences in the classroom. Yeah. And by putting these categories together and by summing up what comes out, you can evaluate the experience and the observations and also the motivation of the students. So what are our results? The results show that first of all, this module in educational science meets the students' expectations and fits in with the engineering courses of study from their perspective, which is very good, because for us this means this is a good choice for them, and it also fits into their study program for the bachelor. And it also shows that there is an interest in teaching. After the school internship, most of the students are still interested in teaching or see the possibility of taking up the master's program at the University of Education. And if not, they see a certain experience also for their career in the textile and clothing industry, because they got an insight into the system of vocational training. And this is something you cannot get by yourselves. This has to be organized. It's not that easy to get into or get inside into a state school. And well, they could, that's what one can say, really appreciate this kind of experience. And it opens up their eyes, their minds for something new, for a new professional perspective. And that's what they also see. Is this a new career opportunity for them? And of course, the vocational system is very different in other countries, but I think related to Germany and also to other countries, it could be very interesting whether such an elective module about teaching at a vocational college could be also interesting in their studies, could be interesting in the field of textile and clothing or other industrial branches, and would also help to build up a network between universities and their industrial fields and vocational colleges. For Germany, this is very important because out of a vocational training, you normally also get the students at the applied universities, applied sciences, because they have got some knowledge about this occupational field and might be still interested. Maybe they learned tailoring and then they're interested for the clothing industry. So at this point, vocational colleges deliver in a certain way students to universities of applied sciences. And if one has this in regard, then it could be interesting also for further professional fields. Well, I am at the end of my lecture, and I would like to say all the proof of a pudding is in the eating. So young people have to find it out by themselves whether this profession is something for them, and we should give them the experience. We should give them the opportunity. Thank you so much.